I think Aphrodite is one of the most misunderstood characters in all of mythology. Today we're going to talk about what it's like to work with her from my own lived experience as a modern devotee, as well as taking a look at her ancient roots to really understand who this goddess is and where she came from and why to work with her. So if you've been feeling the pull to Aphrodite, or you're wanting to really understand your relationship to your body and reclaiming your sensuality and your beauty and your relationships, all those sorts of things, this is a great video for you. Welcome back to the Witch's Bedroom. My name is Wisteria Root. I'm super passionate about helping people create sensual, sacred relationships to their bodies, as well as giving super practical spiritual guidance that will make your life better literally today. So if you're ready to learn more about Aphrodite, then I have my notes over here. I have my water over here. Let's get started. First question, who is she? Aphrodite is one of the most ancient goddesses in the entire world. Full stop, let me say it again. Aphrodite is one of the most ancient goddesses in the entire world. She was ancient in the time of the ancients. In the book, When Women Were Drummers, it really beautifully paints this sort of lineage of the goddess so that you can trace back her origins in many different faces and epithets, all back to Inanna, Ishtar, Astarte, the ancient goddesses of Mesopotamia. These were goddesses of love, war, sex, and power. And we see a lot of these aspects in Aphrodite, and it's really important to think about where she was from, because it'll paint a much more broad picture than kind of this image that we have of her today. When I say Aphrodite, a lot of people who haven't done a lot of research yet think of her as this sort of shallow, vapid goddess of performative beauty and frou-frou rom-com love. And she is those things, but she's so much more than those things. She has over 80 known epithets, and an epithet is essentially an aspect of a deity. So she rules over 80 different aspects of life that we're able to trace historically in historical context. A lot of that image that we have of her today is a result of propaganda, patriarchy, and colonialism that has all really benefited from making people feel very disconnected to their bodies, to the divine feminine, and just sort of distorting the story and lineage of who the goddess is and why people should connect with her. So first, let's paint a picture of the origin of Aphrodite. Now, there's two versions of her birth story depending on kind of where you're pulling your information from. One of them ties her more directly to the Olympians and the very popular Greek stories that we know today. And then the other version ties her to being the daughter of Uranus. And Uranus was this primordial force of chaos. And when we look into astrology and mysticism, we see that Uranus represents initiation. It represents the forward momentum that propels innovation and change. Another way to look at it is the irresistible force of circumstance. So if we look at Aphrodite rising out of the sea foam from Uranus's cut off genitals, we can then see a lot about her story, both in an ancient context and a modern context. So ancient context, Uranus, this uncontrollable, unpredictable, sometimes destructive, sometimes very innovative force. To ancient people, we can kind of infer that out of this scary, wild, untamable thing that they had great reverence for, being the ocean, being this sky god, all of those sorts of things, rises this very, most of the time, benevolent, beautiful, nurturing image of the divine feminine. And so there's a lot to be said about cultural innovation from their ability to connect with her in this inspirational muse aspect, instead of just this primal ancient force that can be a little bit more violent and aggressive that we see in older goddesses. So she's sort of that cultural connector. And then also when we look at her in a more modern context, if Uranus is the irresistible force of circumstance, then we're able to understand that true love, romantic partnerships, inspiration, the state of your body, all those sorts of things rise out of unpredictable circumstances. We can choose who to love, like we can choose to love anybody or everybody, but I don't really think that we get to choose when a truly aligned person enters our life. And I think that that's what our origin story of Aphrodite is really talking about, how from the sea of the unknown, from the abyss, from the wild changing tides arises sometimes this beautiful, amazing, soul-nourishing, passionate, earth-shattering opportunity for love. And so that's kind of a really beautiful place to start looking at her. And I said that she was a cultural connector, and I use those words super specifically because her places of worship were seaports most often. She was worshipped all over ancient Greece, but the big one, the most powerful ancient sanctuary to her, said to be her birthplace, was in Paphos in Cyprus in Greece. And there is a temple there that has all these historians and rich culture that is still embedded in that place. And so when we think about what was happening in seaports in ancient times, well, it's this place of convergence where people all over the known world are gathering to exchange information and goods, and all these sorts of things are melding together. And so there's a lot of a forward momentum of new ideas, of beauty to be found. I don't know if you've ever seen a seaport, but those places are so beautiful. And there's also a lot of travelers, a lot of people coming and going. Now, there is lots of examples all over the world of the sort of sexual connection that a lot of like seaports around the world will have, because, you know, you send a bunch of sailors out to sea for a long period of time. Sometimes they just want some loving, you know? And so this is sort of a debated thing in the anthropological lens of Aphrodite, but some historians think that there was ritualized acts of sensuality or like really ancient sex work that was done in her temples that were done by the Halridul, which is sort of the name of her priestesses, were both men and women. Her story is really queer if you start looking deeper into it. There was both reverence and physical worship of multiple people, of same-sex couples, different sex couples, all those sorts of things. And then there's also other historians that aren't quite sure if there was actually sacred prostitution in these temples, and that it was actually maybe something that was misunderstood. But I don't know, just based off of my own intuition and what I know about human beings, sex work is like one of the most ancient jobs in the entire world. So it just kind of makes sense that in this place that was full of beauty, full of art, full of reverence to the goddess of sex, that you put one and one together, you get two. I don't know, that's all I'm saying. So anyway, she starts off in this place that is beautiful, full of people coming and going, and maybe full of people coming and going in a different way. I don't know. And we'll look deeper into the different epithets that people called on her for in ancient times, as well as reasons to call on her now. But I want to talk a little bit about my experience working with her. I've been in deep devotion with her for the last 5 years. Since 2020, when we all had the plague. You guys remember the plague? That was crazy. But I think the first time that I really started working with her was closer to maybe 12 years ago. And so I've definitely spent a lot of time with Aphrodite in a lot of different ways, and I've learned some really interesting things about her. One of the stories that I have is from 2020. I was in this just ill-matched relationship. It was one of those relationships where like neither person is really the right person for the other person to actually be happy, but both of us were really young and both of us really wanted to believe in true love, and so we were trying to make it work even though we were not compatible. And I had spent a lot of time alone during this because they worked a lot and I was alone a lot at home, and I had this altar to Aphrodite, and it was in my art studio. It was on this really tall shelf, and I had this little seashell, and I was engaged to this person, and I put my engagement ring inside of her little seashell, and I went to sleep. And then the next day when I come out and I look at it, the ring was crushed. When I say like it was a ring, which one is the best example? It was a ring like this, okay, where it's got like this whole band. You can see I'm squeezing it. Oh, you can't see it, but I'm squeezing it. I'm trying to this is making my point. Like, it's so strong that it won't even let me really squeeze it and distort it. And when I came out, the ring was completely squashed. It was flat, as if an animal had bitten it and smushed it. But our dog didn't eat it. Nobody had touched it. And the ring just ends up being smashed. We ended up separating probably 3 weeks after that. And it was a very difficult separation, and it had been something that was coming for a really long time. And it was actually a huge catalyst in changing my life, because after I left that relationship, I started traveling full time for 3 years. I got really into tarot. I read tarot for over 10,000 people. And so leaving this relationship, which I had the strength to do because of this weird synchronicity with Aphrodite, as well as some other things, really catalyzed my spiritual journey and my self-love journey. At that time, I was the heaviest I've ever been. I was almost 200 pounds, and I was taking terrible care of my body. I was eating really, really poorly, and I just felt horrible about myself inside and out. And working with Aphrodite really helped me through that. Working with her helped me find the beauty in taking good care of myself, the beauty in my rituals of beauty, the beauty in the curves of my body, the way that my body was naturally shaped. And through finding that self-love, I was able to naturally lose a ton of weight, because I started treating myself like someone I loved instead of someone that I hated, because I would do so much work with her, calling on her to imbue my life with love. And so I really just cannot recommend working with her enough to people who feel drawn to her, because when I say I was at my lowest, I was in the middle of my darkest time, I felt so powerless. I felt so scared. I felt so weak. She not only came into my life and kind of shook me awake, she also gave me the courage to change, and she gave me the inspiration and direction to follow my wildest dreams. So that's definitely one story that I have that's really the height of working with her. I do want to share all aspects of working with her, though, because it isn't all love and light. And I mean that quite literally. So I have this, it's going to be really hard to show you, but I have this tattoo on my ankle. Right here, of the symbol Venus. Oh, I just put my foot on the internet. I guess you're welcome, internet. But anyway, I have this tattoo of the goddess Venus. And I got that symbol when I was 14 or 15. It was a stick and poke I got from my friend, and it was one of the first tattoos that I got. And to me, tattoos are a very magical thing, right? You're adorning your body with something, and I've always treated them like a ceremony. And so when I put this on my body, it was because I wanted to be in devotion to the goddess. I wanted to honor the divine feminine in all of these different ways. And I think that because I made such a deep commitment to the divine feminine from such a young age, which is a story for a whole other time, I have been exposed to many faces of her. Not just many different goddess names, but many different energies of who the goddess is. And that hasn't always been fun. Sometimes it's been really scary. And during 2020 was one of those times that it was also pretty scary, because I, like I said, was at my lowest. And so 2020 to 2021, I really started experiencing and working with my inner shadow, but at the time I didn't have the language to understand that it was my shadow. So I felt like I was dealing with some really, really dark energies. And I think that they were residual from trauma that I had experienced as a kid that I never really processed. But to me, they started showing up as Astaroth. was the name that I was gifted of this dark entity that I was engaged with. And I was really afraid of this entity because it felt really powerful and it felt like it was all of the worst parts of me. And then when I finally was given the name in deep meditation, I did research on that, and Astaroth is the Solomonic demonization of Venus, which is a deep pull here, because basically, if you look at all of the demons in the Key of Solomon, and I'm not a demonologist, so if you are a demonologist, you drop your information below, because this is not my forte. I'm not afraid of the darker entities, but I'm not like calling them out, which is why having this entity attached to me was so scary, because it isn't my wheelhouse. But I ended up finding out that Astaroth was another name for Venus, and that this version was a total like bastardization of the goddess. It was super distorted and manipulative and really, really connected to some trauma that I had experienced, to like my sexuality and my sovereignty, which did happen in real life. And so in experiencing the darkness of Venus, Aphrodite, I've actually been able to heal and go deeper into understanding what happened to me and how to get through it. But like, this work is no joke, you know, like she didn't come to me gently. She showed me all of the parts of myself where I was still hurting myself, where I was holding on to someone else's inflictions upon me and how they had festered inside of me. And she basically aggravated them until I was able to do the work enough to heal myself from them. And I think I'm saying this story just because I don't want people to be afraid of that. And I also don't want people to be blind to it. I think in a lot of new age circles, people will call on goddesses and goddess energy to like help them, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you can do that, but know that you're not just bending some universal power to your will, that they're actually going to be teachers along your way, and sometimes those lessons are going to come through in pretty difficult ways. I don't regret any of that. I feel like learning to work with that, like, darker face of her helped me understand the multifaceted nature of all deities. And it was actually a really, really profound and healing lesson, but at the time it was just pretty freaky. So now let's look at the way that I work with her modern day, today. I am a facilitator of women's circles, both online and in person. And she's one of the goddesses that I really like to work with. I embrace working with her as a shadow work goddess, as a goddess that I'm gonna call on when we do mirror work. I find that she really helps me develop super simple rituals. My co-teacher, she likes to think of Aphrodite as a reminder that sometimes it's okay to be a little bit basic, right? Like, we have that reduced down version of her that's rom-com romance and body love and all those sorts of things. And she, like I said, she is that today. She just didn't start out like that. But now today, you know, like, put your perfume on in the name of Aphrodite and you'll feel her. She'll be there. And so I find that I work a lot with her now when I'm wanting to deepen my relationship to my sexuality, when I'm wanting to face my shadows instead of run from them, when I want to feel beautiful in spite of maybe traditional ideas of beauty. I call on her when I want inspiration for my art. I call on her because I really believe that her energy has the ability to unite people and create a certain sense of safety. And we can really see that in a lot of the different epithets that she's been called on. So epithets are different faces of the goddess that have been worshipped all over the world for different reasons. So some of the names that she's called by, Aphrodite Urania, is a celestial spiritual love, and that is most connected to the version of her that came out of the ocean. And then there's Aphrodite Pandemos, which is more connected to the Olympian version, which is more of an earthly, physical, tangible kind of love and pleasure. So right there, you can see the way different cultures viewed her. Aphrodite Urania sees her as this celestial, spiritual, like, ethereal love, where Aphrodite Pandemos is a love of the body, a love of the body's experience of pleasure, of intimacy, of the soft curve, of the touch of a lover, you know, all those sorts of things. So you can kind of see the difference in ways that we look at her. Another really interesting epithet of Aphrodite is Aphrodite Area, which was mostly worshipped in Sparta and Taurus, I believe is the name. I could be butchering these names. I'm so sorry. But Aphrodite Area was known as warlike Aphrodite, which you're probably like, what? She's a goddess of love. What do you mean she's the goddess of war? And that's actually something that comes up in mythology all over the world. There's a lot of goddesses that are both the goddess of love and war. And I think that that's a really interesting thing that we should probably look deeper into as a culture and as people, because love is, once again, the two frequencies of working with love is you work with the brightest, most healing, sacred, sensual, enlivening forces of creativity and beauty, and then you also work with like the kind of madness that can only be created by a spurned love. Hate is really only like the wounded aspect of love, and love that is left unchecked and in pain can lead to so much destruction, so much war, so much death can come from love that's out of place. And so when we look at this aspect of Aphrodite, especially in this Spartan culture, well, we know that Sparta really appreciated a lot of military things inside of their culture that was like central to them. So when we look at Aphrodite, this being of love, sensuality, union, and then we look at her in the context of warlike, it makes me wonder, was it because they were willing to go to war to protect that which they loved? Probably. So some other epithets of Aphrodite that we can take a look at is Aphrodite Pethio, goddess of persuasion and charming speech. Aphrodite Genitilis, which is the protector of childbirth and mothers. Aphrodite Calipagos, the names, I'm sorry. One of beautiful buttocks. There is actually this whole Grecian school of thought that said that women with desirable booties were really smart. And there's actually like a tie between that and modern science that says that something about like the lipids in thighs and hips and booties actually can contribute to like a higher level of brain function. I heard that in one of my Aphrodite books that I've been reading to do this video. So I think that's all very interesting. And that kind of looks at this body worship thing, right? If we look at Venus of Willendorf statues, which you've never seen one, totally go check one out. There are these ancient clay figurines of super bodacious, curvy women. Some of them are pregnant, some of them are not. And so we can see that these, this veneration and honoring of a full figured woman's body is very, very much so connected to the ancient past. And so when we have those like skinnier versions of Aphrodite, like she's a clear depiction of the way our visions of beauty and health have changed. Then we also have Aphrodite Flamodius, which is lover of smiles, joy, and flirtation. Aphrodite, oh, this one's really hard. Aphrodite oh my god. I don't want to say this wrong, so I'm just going to spell it instead. And you let me know how you would say it. Aphrodite, Epitymibdia. Epitymibdia? Like the B is what's really throwing me off here. Anyway, this version of Aphrodite was honored at tombs, representing, once again, that love that transcends death. So all of this is sort of the historical take on what she's like versus, and a little bit of my own story of working with her. if you are wondering if she's calling to you in your life, and if you're this far in the video, she probably is, then let's take a look at her symbols and associations. The reason why it's important to know these sorts of things is so you can receive signs from her as well as you can properly honor her. So what that looks like is making an altar to her, or if you randomly end up seeing one of her things and it really resonates with you, this is kind of one of the ways that you're able to have that back and forth communication with the goddess, is through symbols and associations. So first of all, the rose is a huge symbol of Aphrodite. Doves, another big one. Swans, mirrors, scallop shells, pearls, apples, honey, myrtle, mint, pomegranate, dolphins, another good one, soft pink, deep red, gold, blue, like that really seafoam blue tends to be a color that's really associated with her. The day of the week that's associated most with Venus is Friday, which if you think about, like, the best dates happen on Fridays. So those are sorts of energies that might connect you to her. Here's a little bit about why you should work with her. You should work with her if, let me feel into it. If you feel like, I mean, the one that's right on top is you should work with her if you're wanting to evolve your relationship to your love life. Whether that's you're single and you're wanting to manifest an aligned partner, or you're single and you don't want to date anybody but you still want to live full of love, or you are in a committed relationship and you want to deepen your connection to each other, or if you're opening your relationship and you're wanting to explore having multiple partners. Aphrodite is known for having multiple partners, so she's very polyamorous, so she can really help people navigate that sort of energy. She's very, like, in tune with her sensuality. So if you're wanting to make a home inside of your body and derive as much pleasure from the world as you can, then that's a great reason to work with her. Kind of along those lines is the ability to feel really magnetic. When people are really in their Aphrodite energy, they are able to literally magnetize their desires, not by going out and doing a bunch of things, but by just their state of being. And this is one of those kind of like feminine wiles that has a double-edged sword, because it's like we want to value working hard, we want to value creating and those sorts of things, and there's a place to magnetize without manipulating. And that's kind of one of the more shadowy aspects, is if you feel like you've been working through feeling like you have to control people in order to get what you want, or control a situation in order to feel safe. Like, she really helps people overcome that sort of subconscious game that we can play in order to feel safe, magnetizing and using our beauty for different things, which kind of goes into the next thing, is it's like deconstructing your ideas around beauty, whether that's you want to feel beautiful. I mean, it's always you want to feel beautiful as you are, but for some people it's like finding beauty in themselves in a way that they were never really shown. And another kind of beauty, another kind of way of working with that aspect of beauty is if you're afraid of being beautiful, which is huge. And I don't think that enough people talk about that, where we have this idea that if we're pretty, or if we're visibly sensual, then we're going to be judged by our community, or we're going to be ostracized, or we're going to attract negative attention. And so there's a time and a place to really like be in your magnetism and feel super connected to your sensuality, for sure, in order to be safe. But then also there's this ability to know that it's safe to be sensual. It's safe to be connected to yourself. It's safe to feel beautiful. And a lot of times that can be sort of weaponized. So we can really work with Aphrodite if we're wanting to depack those like sisterhood wounds and forming deep connections with other women. If you're feeling like you struggle with jealousy, Aphrodite is a really good goddess to work with for that, because she has had her fair share of legends that really surround this idea of jealousy. So if you're a mother, or if you're trying to get pregnant, that's a great way to work with Aphrodite as well. I think also, like, if you don't want to get pregnant, Aphrodite is the protector. You can also call on her for those sorts of things. So continuing to work on your connection to Eros and pleasure as something divine. I also call on her a lot for inspiration and art. And I guess I want to clarify, when I call on her for those sorts of things like art and inspiration, I'm not trying to take from her. I'm trying to serve her in those moments. And that goes into like my own beliefs around who and what a deity is. And I have a whole other video about that if you want to check that out on the channel. It'll be linked in here. But to me, I don't want to just take from goddesses. Like, I want there to be some kind of exchange. And I also really think that at the center of my spiritual practice is making the world a better place, not just deriving my own pleasure. And so when I call on Aphrodite for inspiration or to feel beautiful or to embody love or any of those sorts of things, I'm doing it with the intention of, how can my passion, how can my creativity, how can my self-expression best benefit the world around me? And that's led me to some pretty crazy ideas. Like, I did a webinar that I will definitely run again called Orgasms for World Peace, where we talk about how to channel your sensual energy and raise it up in order to send out loving energy to the rest of the world. And that is so Aphrodisian. So any kind of really like sex magic that you do, obviously Aphrodite is kind of a go-to. We sort of already talked about her shadows, but if you're wanting to work on your relationship to codependency, whether that's to a partner or to lovers or friends or any sorts of things like that, or parents or friends I meant, then you can work with her for things like that. She's also, like I said, really helped me heal from, what's like the right way to say this? Like, she's helped me heal from cruel things that happened to my physical body. That's a good way to do that. And so integrating these aspects of self really help you honor your erotic intelligence, the wisdom of your body. That's the biggest thing that I think I've noticed from being in deep devotion to her for the last 5 years, is I was able to shed the need to shapeshift into who I thought my partners wanted me to be in order to stay, which by the way doesn't work. And instead she helped me trust like my own discernment, my own pleasure, my own direction in life. And I think that was really huge. She also has like given me things in my life, like brought them into my life, and it like, you're always given the lesson that you need, right? Like, I think one of the pitfalls of people working with Aphrodite or love spells in general is that they try to control something that they can't control. Aphrodite comes from Uranus. Uranus, this uncontrollable force of circumstance, is from which the depths of true love are born. And sure, you can manifest a partner, and sure, you can call in all of these opportunities, but they're only gonna meet you where you're at. And so what I found is she's answered my petitions, she's helped me along my journey, but she couldn't give me something that I wasn't ready for, even if I was asking for it. And so I think one of the big things about working with Aphrodite is that not only will she meet you where you're at, but she will give you lessons that help you get to where you're trying to go. So if you're trying to really embody self-love and embrace body positivity or neutrality, or just heal from, she also really has so much love for so many different kinds of bodies, like disabled bodies and people of many different quirks who feel like they've never seen themselves through the eyes of beauty. I really encourage you to work with Aphrodite because she'll help you see that muse within yourself. And the thing about the muse and the lover and all these other things is that they play with life. So if you're wanting to have more play, more fun, like getting to flirt with life and feel just excited and charmed and all those sorts of things, like she's definitely helped me a lot through my mental health journey. And also stepping into roles of leadership have been a huge thing that I've learned a lot through working with Aphrodite. Is as I've been able to create a sacred and safe space for my own body, I have met a lot of other people who are on this path too, and who we are able to exchange those ideas with. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about being in circle with other women, is when you're able to embrace the goddess mindset of there is this divinity all around us, and that we each are embodiments of that sacred spark of creativity in life. You're able to then like really witness the magic in other women, and you're able to learn so much from the different ways that different people do things, which is super, super powerful. So I want to end this video off with an invocation to Aphrodite. May it open your relationship to her, deepen your relationship to her, if that's what you're looking for. If you just want to listen to this as a poem, then that is entirely and totally up to your discernment. And I am going to be linking a download for this invocation in the description box below, so you can save it and add it to your grimoire if that is something that you're interested in. So, Aphrodite, O ancient one, sea-born maiden of golden beauty, I welcome you into my life. Transform me from the inside, heal my sexuality, release the burdens of heartache, weave threads of pure love between me and everything that crosses my path. Aphrodite, O muse maiden, inspire me. Stoke the flame of my wild creativity. May I be outrageous. May I revel in the beauty all around me. Teach me to sculpt my life into a living masterpiece. Inspire me to sing melodies of sweet love. Inspire my strength and my courage to defend that which is defendable. Aphrodite, O flirtatious one, court me, dazzle my mind, body, and spirit. May I live in playful seduction with life. Transmute my shame and broken heart so the healing waters of love may flow from me once again. Aphrodite, O divine lover, protect me, choose me, see me. Show me unwavering devotion through my highest highs and my darkest nights. May I linger in the foreplay, not rushing up a relationship escalator, shaping my life into someone else's vision of happiness. May the beliefs that hold me back from ecstatic love on my own terms be rewritten so I can transcend the box of what love should be and savor every drop of the glorious nectar that is given from being in divine union with myself, my world, my lovers, and my community, and my spirit. May your flame of divine love flow heart to heart. Come, love, inspire, and create through me, so all may live in peace, balance, and joy. Aphrodite, I honor and bless thee, and so it is, and so it shall be. Thank you so much for being here. If this video resonated with you, let me know in the comments below. If there's another goddess you would like me to do a deep dive of, let me know, and I am happy to do this. I love talking about this sort of stuff, and I'd love to see you more in the future. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, love you. Bye.